been able to learn how to classify vector data. And now in this session, we want to learn how to create a new vector data set. Most of the data we've been using come from somewhere. Most data sometimes come from a source, but more particularly, if we want to work on some dedicated or specialized project, we may necessarily need to create our own data because data may not be readily available. And so the objective of this session is to learn how to create a new vector data set. And before we add a new data to our layer panel, like you can see, we need to create a new vector data set and add it here. And so we will be creating a new vector data completely, rather than editing all of what we originally have. We will be creating our own new data set, and therefore we need to define our data first before we begin. And so open up your QGIS and create a new blank document. Before you do that, make sure that you saved your project by going to project, save the works we've been doing into the module exercise folder on your desktop and click on save. And so once you are done, you can now have it saved before, so I can replace it or I can save it with a new name and call it project. So once you're done giving it a name, you can save, and after that you can now open up a blank new project. To open up a blank new project, go to project, click on new, and so here you have it. We now have a blank project. And so to begin, locate the menu layer. As you can see from the menu toolbar, click on the layer. Now click on create layer. It brings up other options. Then select the new shapefile layer and click on it. And so you have a new shapefile layer dialog window opened up, as you can see from my graphic user interface. Next to your file name field, there's a three dots here. Click on the three dots to browse to the save layer as. As you can see, you want to save the new layer as. So locate your exercise file, open up your exercise data, then you can now save it as a school property. That's the shape file we want to save. You can call it school property, the file name. And so we have a new layer which is school property, and it's a shape file. The different data set layer is built differently, and so it is very important you decide the kind of data set you want, because whatever data layer we create cannot be changed. What I mean is, you may not necessarily be able to change its type anymore once it's created. We want to create a polygon feature, and so you will change the geometric type from point using this drop down arrow and select a polygon. This literally means that we want to be creating a polygon feature. This next field allows us to specify the coordinate reference system we will be using. It helps us to associate the coordinates that we will be using on our position on the Earth's surface. And so we want to associate coordinates to the position on the Earth's surface. So for this project, we will maintain what we already have. Select the EPSG for the 326 WGS 84. We also have a collection of fields that is grouped under the new field option. A new layer has just one attribute by default, which is the field ID, which you should see from in the field list. However, In order to create a new data, we may actually need to create something about the features we'll be creating. We may provide some other information about the layer feature. So now we may need to add a new field for the name. Let's just call it a name. The name field, text type, the length is 80. Let's leave that by default. You can reduce it if you want. So once we're done with this, you can now click OK. Once you click OK, you notice that the name field called school property would have been added to our layers panel, as you can see. However, there is nothing on our map canvas. So we've been able to create a new shapefile, a new layer called the school property, using the create layer feature from here. And so we've been able to create a new layer called school property. When we create new data, obviously it has to come from data objects that really exist on the real world. Therefore, we need to get information about the place we want to create a new data from. We talked about the GIS technologies. We made mention of remote sensing. We talk about the GPS, the global positioning system. There are many ways we can obtain data objects using all of these technologies. We could use the GPS to capture data points in the real world, then import the data into QGIS, and we can manually get coordinates. We can as well digitize or trace objects from remote sense data, such as the satellite images or area photographs. For example, today a sample data have been provided, and so we will need to import it, and maybe from there we'll start digitizing it. To add the raster data, you can use the Open Data Source Manager. Click on it, and now on your Data Source Manager browser, you can click on the raster. Once you click on the raster, the three dots are at this region. Click on it and locate your exercise file. Once it's open, locate the exercise data, then click on the raster and select this one, the 3420C. And so once you're done, you can click on open. Once you open it up, we can now add the raster data. And now you can close. You will now see that an image has been added on your layers panel. You can as well do this from your browser. Let's assume this is not there. Let's remove it. Remove the layer. Right click on it and click on remove. Go to your browser. Now you know we opened the favorites before. We added a new directory. So with this we can easily drag, and so where your exercise data is on your desktop, and that's why we added the desktop. So open it, look for raster. Here's raster. Then you can see the same thing, which is this, the raster image. Let's click and hold and drag into your map canvas. And so you can now see that this is another method in which you can add your raster data, just like we did in the previous video. And if you haven't seen any raster data or an image showing on your map canvas, you can use the zoom to zoom around. You can zoom in, and now you have your image. But I have an image already, so we just did that demonstration for those who may not. And so once you zoom, you can have a glimpse about some of the contents of the image. You can see roads, you can see built up buildings, you can see vegetation, and you can see water, and so many other features. Now we want to start digitizing the school property. But before doing that, let's move the school property. Let's reorder it and place it at the top, and let's make it the first layer. And so left click on the school property, drag it to the top, and now we have the school property ordered. Now I want to zoom the raster image to layer, so I'll right click on the image and click on zoom to layer, so we can see that it's properly fitted on a map canvas as we want. Now let's zoom to the region where we may need to be digitizing, and so by doing that you can use the zoom in to click on it Right click and hold around this region of interest. I will left click, drag and hold and leave it. We will be digitizing around this region of interest. And so we want to assume this is the school property. This looks like a field, and this is a school campus, for example, and this is also another field. So let's try and zoom in so that we can see some of these features. To start digitizing, we need to enter into our edit mode. This helps us to avoid accidentally deleting or editing any important data that have already existed. And so we will enter the edit mode by click on the school property, and now you see that the edit button is rather active. If you can't find this, you can use your view menu to locate tool editing options, and so that's the digitizing menu entry. So click on view, go to tools bar, look for your digitizing tools bar, and so once you have it there, make sure it's checked, and then we can begin editing. And as soon as you toggle the editing pen, you will notice that some other options will be active. Now click on toggle editing. Now you can see that other options are now ready, and so we can start digitizing our school property. Of course, some other buttons may still look very inactive. Now you can click on the Add Polygon feature to begin digitizing. Click on it. We want to start digitizing the school field using the Add Polygon feature. And so this region is our region of interest, the school field. So you can zoom a little bit around the area, or you can also pan around it, so you can properly have an idea of where we want to digitize. And so when you click on that Add Polygon feature, you will notice that the map cursor has become a crosshair. This will allow you to move accurately from one place point to the other. Also remember that when you're digitizing, you can still use the zoom in tool to zoom to any extent of where you're not seeing very clearly. You can zoom to that area. You can as well use your pan tool to drag around any region you intend to digitize that is not very visible. And now to start digitizing, you can click from any start point, click and hold it. Once you click, you can move the line to the next point. If you're not properly seeing it very well, you can use the pan tool to drag. Okay, so you can select the Add Polygon. So we already had the first point, so our selection is still active. Move your crosshair to the next point using your map cursor. You can click and also move again to the next point on the school field. Click on it. Use your pan tool to see other region. Okay, select it again and move to the next point. Once you get to the next point, just click, move to the next point, click, and once you're done, you can just right click, and so it's going to open up an attribute table for the feature we just digitized. Now you can add values to the features. You can put the ID number, you can make it 1, and once that is done, you can click on the OK. You notice that a new feature, shapefile school property, has been created. So we have successfully digitized the school property, which is the field region of our interest. Now you can open up your attribute table to see the information we have about the school property. Right click on it. You can click on open attribute, or if you select it, you can go to the attribute table here, whichever is the option. Right click, select the open attribute for, and so we have the ID that we entered there as shown here, which is 1. So the editing mode is still very active, and so we can add other things to it. And so when the attribute table for the school property is opened, we can add another field to it. You can see that we still have the toggle editing mode active, so we can still add several fields. Like now we want to add the field name for where we just digitize this our region of interest. So we want to give it a name, and so because we may be digitizing other features, it's very important that we give them specific names. And so let's create a field called name using this new field selection tool. Click on it, and the name of the field is let's call it name. It's going to be a text since we'll be typing the name. The name is a text variable. So click on the text, then we can change the length to say 20. And so when we have this, you can click on OK. Now you can click on that region, and let's call it a spot field, spot underscore field. And once this is done, you can click outside, then click on what? The save edits. And once you click on the save edits, you can now close. And when you right click again, or you click on the attribute table after selecting the school property, you will notice that a new field that we just added, the name spot field, is now active on our attributes table. So you can now close. And now we can digitize another region using our pan tool. Let's move it to our region of interest. Let's say this region. So you select the add polygon feature, click on it, left click on your region of interest, making it your starting point, left click, so you have this line showing. You can use your pan tool to drag around so you can see what you're doing. Select it again, and so you have the line still active. Click on your next point, left click on your next point, move to the next point, click, go to your pan, drag around, select the tool again, move to your next point, click, move to the next point again, click, and once you're done at the last point, you can right click, and so you can give it an ID number, let's say 2. And so because we created a name field for the school property, we now have the name showing here, and so we can give it a name, let's say campus, and click on OK. And so you can now see that it's using your pan tool, it's also very active. And so when you right click on the school property, go to your attributes table, you will notice that a field ID 2 has been added, the record 2 has been added with a column field called name for campus. So you can close.